Hey there, it's Jim Mackay here. I know it's been a minute, so I figured I would kind of come back to YouTube and start the kind of content creation train back up again with a question that I think's been on a lot of people's minds for a long time, and I think we're actually getting more and more hints to it with this most recent Kuma flashback. And it was actually asked of me by my great friend Cuddy Flam what exactly I think that Captain John's treasure is. So what exactly do I think Captain John's mystical treasure that Buggy's been searching for his entire life, it seems like? What do I think that his treasure actually is? Well, I think it's very simple. I think it's precisely where we met Captain John. I think that his treasure that he was searching for was Thriller Bark itself. Now, aside from being a huge Michael Jackson Thriller album reference, Thriller Bark actually has some huge kind of implications and clues to the overall process that the One Piece world is created by and destroyed by and created by. And if you really start thinking about it, Thriller Bark is a perfect amalgamation of what Mary Joa is atop the Red Line. It's surrounded by a giant fence, very similar to how the Red Line itself kind of fences off the world. It has the same type pulley system, or the special bandalas lifts that the Red Port contains, that Suryoshi and all them take to the Reverie. And if you really look at all of the architecture within Thriller Bark, it is very similar to the architecture that we see in Mary Joa. And I think that Thriller Bark might just be the most recent example of this whole resetting the world kind of thing, where there is a giant who is destroyed or killed by smaller beings, very much the same as like Gulliver's Travels, and then the smaller people take over what was a normal sized thing for the giant. And that's pretty much what I think Thriller Bark was originally, was one of the old holy lands of the One Piece world. And then the next step up from that, probably the most recent iteration of this whole process, is the Holy Land of Mary Joa. And then to sort of add to the craziness, I think that in these cataclysmic events that reshape the One Piece world and the power structure as well as the peoples of the One Piece world, I think that there are these chunks of islands or islands as a whole, just like what Iceberg was trying to do with Water 7, where essentially a island is made into a ship that is able to survive a world flood, any sort of cataclysmic event like that in the One Piece world, by living on this island and either being high enough to survive a flood or just being able to float on the waters and survive a gigantic worldwide flood, essentially making the island a pseudo Noah's Ark. And I know that the story goes that Captain John was a member of the Rocks Pirates, and then he amassed this huge treasure, and when he didn't want to share with any of his crewmates, they pretty much mutinied and, took care of him. And somehow Moria and Dr. Hogback found this body, and he became one of the zombies in Hogback's lab. But I kind of have a big kind of plot hole to poke into that story and narrative that we're told. Somehow Buggy knew that this circle, the circle arm captain bracelet thing was the map to Captain John's treasure, and supposedly it was found on Captain John's body. So how exactly did his crew kill him but not realize to take the map with them to try to find the treasure? That's just like the stupidest crew I've ever heard. So I think what's much more likely is that Captain John just died at the point and place of his treasure, which wasn't really a treasure like the stories say, but was a island ship, and a treasure in the sense that it was a former Holy Land, and probably currently has some power and capabilities relating to that. And that Captain John died there. When Moria and Hogback got there, however Moria found it, he kind of found the body where he had died with his treasure. Basically completing that old trope of a villainless character finding the thing they've been after forever, and that ends up kind of killing them and they die there. And I think Captain John fits that to a T, of having this huge treasure in quotation marks and then dying at that place. That, as the story goes, that the place that he valued over his own life. And now, of course, because of the recent One Piece chapters, and in particularly 1096, where we see the Rocks Pirates and Roger Pirates show up at God Valley, and the fact that God Valley itself, the entire middle of it, kind of looks like a section of it is missing, I am wondering if this Holy Land ship type thing that is Captain John's treasure is actually a part of God Valley, which would also mean, of course, that Thriller Bark was originally a piece of God Valley. Now, in one of the newest chapters, 1096, when the Rocks Pirates land on God Valley, we see this character in the background here who has a claw-like weapon. And I asked around, and aside from Blackbeard, the only time that this claw-like weapon has been seen is from this character in Thriller Bark. And of course, this weapon's very important because it's strongly implied in the series that this is the weapon that gave Shanks his 3 scars around his left eye. And I know that there's lots of fan theories out there that all of these pirates and ghosts and characters that are in armor might be former members of the Rock's Pirates, which I kind of tend to agree with, at least in some form. And I believe that might all be because this is a chunk of God Valley that is now Thriller Bark. But I think that the next big question that needs to be addressed with all of this, and that should be on the forefront of all of our minds, is why exactly is Buggy after this treasure? And I believe it's because he's trying to return home. I don't believe that Garland Shanks is Shanks' father or a relation. I think that right now in the manga, we can't see the colors or anything like that, but Garland's hair is not shaded in the same way that Shanks's is. In fact, it's completely white, the very same that Buggy's blue hair is. And I believe that's all because Garland is actually Buggy's father, or at least some relation, and that Shanks may have taken over his kind of place in the hierarchy in some way, whereas Buggy's the true heir to all of this stuff. And I know that at first that might sound abrasive and very outlandish and tinfoily or whatever, but the name Figureland relates to Figaro, which means barber, like the Barber of Figaro, the very famous play in the Bugs Bunny cartoon. And a barber itself means a person whose profession is cutting, which the bar fruit, Buggy's, devil fruit, is the cut fruit, or the chop fruit in the English translation. And I think that all of that might be clues, especially Figureland Garland's crazy hair and mustache and all of that, kind of hairstyle design that a barber might take a hand in, or at least assist with making. I think all point to the idea that maybe Buggy is in fact related to Figureland more than our beloved Shanks is. In fact, following that same train of thought, it's come to my mind kind of how many different hairstyles throughout the entire manga series that Buggy actually has had. I think all of that might be clues to this barber Figureland ties. And of course, Thriller Bark ends with Kuma's arrival and his nothing happened moment with Zoro. And I believe this all ties into one of the most loaded panels that Oda has ever drawn in the manga, which is right here. And the implications and meanings behind this panel, I think, actually kind of dictate and draw out the entire story, which will, of course, be featured in my next video. As always, my name is Adam Jim Rakai. I thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know what you think in the comments about this island ship, Holy Land thing. And look forward to the next video, which will be touching on directly this pawpaw fruit and the entire ecosystem and flow of the One Piece world. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.